To kick off our series with Dr. Emily Levy, today we'll be discussing the challenges students face and how we can create a more inclusive approach to learning. This is the High Tea Podcast.
My name is Dr. Emily Levy, and I am the founder and director of EBL Coaching, which is a one-on-one tutoring program for special education students based in New York and New Jersey, but we also work with students worldwide through our virtual platform. And we work with students as young as the preschool level. We go all the way up through the adult level, and we use all research-based multisensory techniques to help students develop their skills in reading, writing, math, spelling, and executive functioning skills.
That's such an interesting cause. So, I know you spent your career working with students who have ADHD and learning challenges. What first made you realize that traditional education wasn't reaching every child?
Well, I actually grew up in the field of special education. My mother was the founder of a school for students with learning disabilities in Florida, which is where I grew up. And that was really my first taste of what an incredible difference it could make for children with specialized learning needs to receive the right support and the right instruction in school. I really saw how life-changing it was for them. So that was really kind of how I got started. Ultimately, I thought I was going to carve my own path. So I went to Brown University for my undergraduate. I ended up doing finance for a few years before pivoting back and realizing that special education was my calling, and eventually formed what is now EBL Coaching.
So, what made you create EBL coaching versus carrying on your family school in Florida or, going into finance?
Yeah. So to answer that, it wasn't really part of a plan, so to speak. I kind of, I like I said, I grew up working at my mother's school, but really thought I wanted to carve my own path, do my own thing, not live in my mother's shadow. So I had an opportunity to work on Wall Street, and I thought it was really cool and exciting, and to be in New York City, and it was fun. And even though I really learned a lot in terms of finance skills, working with numbers, client relationships, a lot of great skills, I didn't feel that it was my calling. It didn't feel gratifying for me as much as it had when I worked with children and I saw what a difference the right education could make in their lives. At that point, I was actually working in finance during the day after 2 years. And then I started tutoring kids at night all around Manhattan and was kind of juggling both until I realized both was too much for me. So I left my finance job. I started tutoring kids myself all around Manhattan, and then very slowly and organically started to bring on other tutors who specialized in different skill areas, whether it was early childhood reading or high school math or study skills, and just really organically grew my program into what it is today.
So, for parents listening who wonder whether their child is falling behind or simply learning differently, what signs should they pay attention to? When do you think a student needs to get that specialized help from tutors like you?
Well, I think that if a parent is noticing their child struggling at home, whether it's struggling to learn how to read, whether it's struggling to write effective sentences or paragraphs, struggling to complete math problems, they're totally disorganized, whatever it may be, if a parent is noticing these struggles at home, I always say start by talking to their teacher. See if the teacher's noticing these struggles in the classroom as well. If so, it really may make sense to have a full evaluation done to see if perhaps something deeper is going on, like a learning disability or ADHD. And that's where that specialized support really comes in. With that said, at our program, we don't exclusively work with students who have a diagnosis. We work with a lot of kids who are struggling readers or have difficulty with writing or math and really need that extra remediation, but don't necessarily have a diagnosis.
So, going back to how you were talking about, some students can just have trouble in school. A lot of students with learning differences grow up believing that they're bad at school. So, how do you help rebuild that sort of confidence?
That's a great question. And I think you're right in that kids who struggle in school start to feel like they're not capable, they're not smart. But the reality is that many kids with learning disabilities happen to have very high IQs and are very smart. They just really need the right support to help them build their skills. And so part of what we do in terms of building confidence is that when we're working with the student, we like to show them evidence of their progress. So if we started with them 3 months ago and they could only write one sentence and now they're able to write a full paragraph, we show that to them. We say, look what you were doing 3 months ago and look what you're doing now. You should be so proud of how much growth you've made. And when we show them evidence instead of just giving empty compliments, when we show them proof of their progress, in turn, it builds their confidence and builds their motivation to want to excel.
Yeah, I can see how that can be really motivating, especially because, like you said, it's not an empty compliment. You're literally showing them the progress they've made.
Moving on, what's something that students with ADHD or learning challenges often hear that you wish people would stop saying or would empathize with these students a little bit more?
See, the number one thing that I hear is that individuals with ADHD or learning disabilities are not smart. And like I said before, it's usually the opposite. Usually they're very smart. They just haven't received the right instruction to show off their skills and how capable they are. So I think that's probably the biggest myth out there is that they're not smart.
hmm And you mentioned that you show students like their progress through showing them their previous writing to how they're writing right now. Are there any success stories that completely change your perspective on educational progress?
Well, part of what I love about what I do is that I hear success stories all the time. I have a lot of parents reach out to me many years after we help their child to tell me what they're up to. And there are so many stories. There was a boy that I actually worked with when I started 20 plus years ago who had severe ADHD, severe dyslexia, could not read, was bouncing off the walls. And many years later, his mom called me to say that not only did he make it through college and through graduate school, but he was working as a successful engineer. So when I hear stories like that, it's music to my ears. It keeps me going. And it's a reminder that every child is capable of succeeding in life.
Yeah, that's really motivating for everyone out there. So, for our audience, if a student listening feels frustrated or discouraged academically right now, where should they start? Especially because now it's the summer, they kind of have a time to reset for the new school year.
Well, I think summer is a great time for skills building. So, if there are any academic gaps, or if maybe some concepts were confusing from the past year or prior years, summer is a great time to really work on filling in those gaps, building any missed lessons or concepts that they didn't quite grasp, so they can really help to start the school year on a positive note.
Great. Thank you so much. We kind of wanted to pivot right now to the future and what it's looking like, especially with the rise of tech and AI. You've worked directly with families for years. What trends are you seeing in students today that concern you or might be worse than, say, the past?
Well, I think clearly, as we all know, AI is playing a bigger and bigger role in not just education, but in every aspect of life, essentially. And I think that there are a lot of advantages, especially when it comes to teachers being able to differentiate instruction to kids who are at different levels. Obviously, the fear is that kids are not going to learn how to write or how to complete math problems because they'll just rely on AI. So I think that's really what we need to figure out is how to really teach those skills without over relying on AI to do everything for us.
So, has that attention span or technology or school pressure changed the way that students learn as well? Is there a differentiator now than there was, say, 10 years ago?
I haven't seen it yet. I think that it's something that's quickly evolving in terms of how kids are learning and what kinds of tools that they're using. But with the population that we work with, they still really need that one on one, person to person connection, using that multisensory approach to really help them learn optimally.
So, with AI, how do you think it's going to change the education system? And would you say that there's like a right way and a wrong way to use AI in education?
There's still a lot of schools, including colleges, that really shy away from allowing students to use AI. But then, as soon as kids graduate college, almost every job wants some type of AI fluency and really an understanding of how to use AI as a tool. So, in my opinion, I think what needs to happen is really, I think, starting in high school, students need to learn how to use AI as a tool and the different kinds of chat boxes and which one to use for what, and not shy away from it because it's not going away. It's only going to get better and better and become a more integral part of our lives. So I think really just trying to learn how to use it as a tool, obviously not for cheating, but as a way to help what we do is I think going to be the wave of the future.
Great. So, would you say that AI is the right tool to use for ideation? Should we be coming up with our own ideas, or is it okay to brainstorm with AI?
I don't think it's such a bad idea in general to use it as a way to brainstorm for ideas as long as the actual output is your own and not just kind of copied from AI.
Right now, if you could change one thing about the education system tomorrow, what would that be?
I think that more teachers need more effective professional development on how to effectively educate all different types of students and all types of learners. Well, for instance, a lot of teachers may go to great graduate schools and learn a lot about the theory of how to teach and the theory of education, but they may not learn the best reading approach for kids who have dyslexia or have a learning disability or have ADHD. But when they receive specific professional development on how to teach those types of students who may be within their classroom, that can really prevent those kids from having even greater challenges down the road.
What's one thing you wish every teacher and parent understood about learning differences?
Well, number one, again, that every child has the ability to succeed. And I think that for so many students, it's like I keep saying, they have the potential to excel in life, but it's getting through school that's the challenge. So, what we need to do is find the right services, support, and tools to help them get through school so that they can ultimately find the right career path and thrive in life.
And that wraps up the first episode of our conversation with Dr. Emily Levy. Join us next week where we'll be diving deeper into the realities of ADHD and examine the life skills that matter far beyond the classroom. Thank you for listening, and this is the High Tea Podcast.